This week on NHRA Today, the trio at the top conquer Kansas and widen their Winston Points lead. Washington's wizard of fireworks and fast cars. An uncommon creation inside a clutch can, and Stock's mystery man and his Mustangs. From Weld Wheels in Kansas City, Missouri, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. When the first caveman carved the first wheel from stone, little did he imagine how tricked that disc would become. At a typical drag race, these round shapes abound, but their gleaming chrome and shiny spokes are more than decorative. They are highly sophisticated products built to withstand the powerful force of several thousand horsepower without twisting or fracturing. Put simply, their role is to roll and to remain whole. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of NHRA Today, coming to you from Weld Racing Wheels in a warehouse district of Kansas City, Missouri. Hi, I'm Steve Evans, and as you probably know, Weld is in the wheel business big time. In this 9-story building, 140 employees create over 50 different styles of wheels, from all-out competition to street applications. In the next half hour, we'll show you the manufacturing process that goes into turning raw materials into a beautiful and functional drag racing wheel. We'll also have highlights of the Western Auto Nationals from last weekend in Topeka, and we'll have a story about a driver to whom the 4th of July is a lot more than a patriotic holiday. But first, of course, let's find out what's hot. NHRA has notified two-time Winston Pro Stock champion Darrell Alderman that his Pro Stock competition license and driving privileges will be reinstated effective January 2nd, 1994. One of Alderman's rivals, Warren Johnson, has acquired an associate sponsorship from Ray Festus for the balance of the season. In top fuel news, remarkably, Doug Herbert escaped this crash in qualifying with only a concussion and bruises. Plans are for the team to return to action in Denver with last year's car. During the first top fuel qualifying session at Topeka, Eddie Hill fired the first shot in anger with the long-awaited billet aluminum fuel engine designed by Indian John Morgan. It ran very well. In fact, it was low elapsed time for a while at 494. But then Eddie took out the billet bullet. It looked pretty good. What's wrong?
Everything looked real good except for number 4 main got a little hot, and that's the only problem, frankly, that we've had with the deal since its inception. It's very encouraging that we haven't had any basic problems. It's also disappointing that we continue to get the number 4 main a little hot.
And that's what's hot. This is one of the tests that Weld puts their designs through, and this is Carl Robinson, Director of Drag Racing for the company. Carl, what are you learning here?
Well, we're learning about deflection, Steve. Deflection is when the wheel tries to change shape on the starting line. What we do is we shape the rim shell in such a way to resist deflection. And this test confirms how much deflection we get from a wheel under stress.
It could reduce tire shape.
Absolutely.
Well, the racers are doing a lot of testing of their own this past weekend in Topeka. Here is Dave McClellan with the Funny Car Report.
A welcome sight in the funny car pits at the Western Auto Nationals was the return of Richard Hartman, driving his family's new Oldsmobile Cutlass.
We got a lot of new pieces, got all the right parts. It's just that's one of the reasons we came to this race, is try to learn how to tune it. You know, it's a whole new learning curve for us.
By returning to competition, the entire family has united in coping with the tragic accidental death of Richard's brother, Bob.
My fiance works on the clutch with me. My sister, Rhonda, she works on the heads with my dad, and my mom does just about anything and everything else. So, yeah, it is all family.
Richard's 5:49 qualifying effort earned him the 13th spot in the field, setting up a first-round battle with an impressive Gary Saloni. And the two drivers put on a smoky, backpedaling battle to the finish line, with Saloni in the far lane taking the win. In round 2, Saloni was taken out by Chuck Etchell's Kendall Oil Dodge, who then fell to John Force in a Final Four battle of oil companies. In the championship round, the Castrol Cutlass met up with Gordy Bonnen's Hawaiian Vacation Daytona, but when Bonnen lost traction, Force said aloha and blasted past to the quickest time of eliminations and his 7th win of the season.
After the loss here last year and burning the car down, and I always say there's probably pieces in every room in this town, people took home a lot of that race car, and we lost 100 grand. We're back on our feet. We're really proud of that.
3,150 points at this moment is John Force's lead in the Winston points chase. Al Hoffman is third behind Cruz Pedregon. Chuck Etchell's fourth, and Tom Hoover number 5.
Remember that flat plate of aluminum? Well, it ain't flat anymore. And this is Ken Morris, Pro Race Product Manager here at Weld. What is the process that did this?
Well, basically, Steve, we take the flat piece of aluminum and we put it on our auto spin machine, which is a hydraulic machine. We use an aircraft quality aluminum at 145 thousandths thick. The main advantage to spinning the piece is to thin it down. We get somewhere around 125 thousandths thick on it.
And real strong material, I assume.
Yes, sir.
You know, that machine isn't the only thing hydraulic these days, as Frank Hawley tells us in this week's Fast Fact.
We've done a lot of stories in the past on the clutch setups on today's top fuel dragsters and fuel funny cars and how they're infinitely adjustable. That's a very important part of racing these cars today. This is the pressure plate off of one of those units, and it's mechanical in nature. It has a number of levers, and the levers apply pressure to the clutch based on the engine RPM and the amount of weight. The problem is this clutch is affected by how the engine runs. If the engine makes more power and revs up quickly, it can apply more pressure, so it changes the function of the clutch. Also, as the clutch discs wear as the car goes down the racetrack, these arms move up, and it changes the effective angle of the arms and also which arm is operating at which time. Clayton Harris has come up with maybe a better idea. It's a fingerless clutch. It's hydraulic or pneumatic in nature and very simple. It only has 2 pieces. This is the cover, and this is the piston or the pressure plate portion of it. Fluid is injected through this hose between those two and applies pressure through the piston to the clutch disc. Now, this system is unrelated to how the engine runs and very, very predictable. In fact, they were able to just do a clutch test on the car in the pits, and this is exactly what the clutch pressure is going to read on their next run down the racetrack. The nice thing is about this is it's independent of the engine. In fact, they performed that clutch test without ever starting the engine.
Well, now that we know all about Clayton Harris's hot hydraulics, let's find out how his clutch performed in the clutch. Here's Dave's Top Fuel Report.
Each successive run that Clayton Harris made at the Western Auto Nationals was quicker than the previous effort, culminating in an impressive 5:02, good enough for 9th position.
This is a new technology, a new area to work in, so we're progressing slowly, but we're quite pleased with the way things are going.
Several other teams have shown interest in the system, which Clayton has been working on for 8 of his 30-plus years in the sport.
Like Mark Twain, age is a matter of the mind. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
In the first round of eliminations, Harris met up with another veteran, Rance McDaniel, and Clayton was highly optimistic.
If it meets my expectations, it'll be about a 495.
But just as the cars left the line, tire smoke and then an engine fire put the innovative layback dragster on the sidelines.
We came back up basically the same way we were on the 502, just wanted to repeat, and track just wouldn't hold it. And just an old driving habit, I backpedaled once, and that shouldn't have done that.
Rance McDaniel was then set down in round 2 by low qualifier Scott Coletta, whose American International Airways entry met up with Eddie Hill in the final. The Pennzoil driver held the all-important lane choice, and that may have contributed to Scott's early departure and red light that handed the Thrill his 4th win of the season.
You'd have to be 57 years old and trying hard all your life to make this deal work to know how good it feels right now.
Well, right now, Eddie has got a big lead over Kenny Bernstein in the points chase. Amato is 3rd, followed by Scott Coletta, and Mike Dunn rounds out the top 5.
Well, Ken, now we have 2 halves to a whole rim. What's happened to these pieces since the spin?
Well, Steve, they've been through several processes since we were downstairs. First of all, they came upstairs and went through a T4 oven. After the T4 process, we then final formed the rim for exact tolerances. And after the final forming, we pierced the hole through the center, and then we put into the T6 ovens.
Now, you guys could just bolt these together and silicone it, but you don't.
No, we don't, Steve. We always weld our wheels together, and that way our customers guaranteed of a tubeless product.
What is the actual welding process?
Steve, it's a pretty conventional TIG operation with a fixture that spins around and allows the welder to lay the weld in a precision manner.
What was started by a letter written to the Wayne County Speed Shop ended up at the Shawnee County Courthouse in a surprise visit to one of Scott Jeffrion's biggest fans. Treasury Office employee Paula Lowe's best friend and co-worker Donna Manell not only set up the stopover, but also had to find a reason to get Paula to work because she had planned to take the day off to go to the races.
I was just elated when he came. It's just something I never thought would happen. One of the happiest days of my life. I really can't describe it. I really can't. It's something I'll never forget.
Welcome back to Weld Wheels. We have shown you how the rim shell is created. What about the all-important center, Ken Morris?
Well, Steve, we start off with a solid piece of billet aluminum center, which we bring in and we stamp on our 1,000-ton press. As you've noticed, our 1,000-ton press is quite large. It does take up 2 stories. From the press, it does go to the CNC lathe operation, which does the center and the outer part of the center. It then comes to our CNC mills for its final preparation for the window cutting, the lug hole, and to fasten into the rim shell.
And all computer controlled.
All computer controlled, Steve.
Now, some of these wheels will end up on stock Eliminator cars in 8- and 10-inch widths. Speaking of stock, here's Bob Fry with a Sportsman report.
Sportsman racing at the Western Auto Nationals featured all the big names: Nickett, Emmett, Richardson, Guilford. That's right, Guilford. Chad Guilford isn't exactly a household name yet, but he will be. After winning the Winston Championship in his inaugural season, he gets to carry that number 1 on the side of the race car. A family racing operation, Chad's father, crew chief, and former 3-time Division 5 champ, Rod Guilford, has been the driving force behind his son's racing career.
My dad asked me to drive at the beginning of the season, and we went to Phoenix just going down to see how we'd do, and we ended up in the final round. I red lit in the final. We just went on from there and had a real good season.
I'm real proud of him. It was quite an accomplishment. It's something I always wanted to do all my life, but it meant just as much to have him do it too.
Currently, Chad races behind the wheel of a borrowed car, Dennis Forbes' 1971 Ford Mustang.
At the end of the year, we had problems with our car, and the transmissions kept breaking. So I was really getting worried about Terry Emmons catching me. But Dennis Forbes let us use this car at Dallas, and I went to the semifinals there.
And Chad went on to take the Winston Championship in his first year of competition. But Chad's success at the Western Auto Nationals came to an end in round 4 when the eventual champion, Harvey Emmons III, won it off the starting line with a near-perfect 5:03 reaction time.
Guess it was just their turn, and we'll be back again, and hopefully we'll come out better next race.
In the final, Emmons in the near lane again showed his mastery of the reaction times as he parlayed a perfect light into an easy victory over David Young.
I knew it was good. I knew it was about a 510, 520. I didn't know it was a 500. Started running down the track. I looked back. He was way back there. So I let off and coasted across the line.
Now here are the rest of the winners from the Western Auto Nationals. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob Fry.
Countersinking the bolt holes on the outside of the wheel center is not a terribly technical operation, but it still has to be done with great precision, kind of like the occupation of a well-known Northwest racer.
The 4th of July holiday just wouldn't be the same without fireworks lighting up the skies across America. For drag racer Ted Gourd, they're more than just pretty. They're his business.
We are one of the main importers of Class C common fireworks on the West Coast. We build about 100,000 kits that go out throughout the United States. And right now we're in the process of finishing that up. We're getting trailers loaded out for the warehouses and taking care of our personal accounts and stuff like that. The 4th is a big part. Now New Year's is starting to pick up a little bit for us. Down south, the New Year's operation is a lot bigger than it is up here. In some areas of the country, like up in Canada, for instance, Halloween is a really big time of the year for them.
Gourd got into the fireworks business almost by accident.
I was in Montana and I bought some fireworks, brought home to shoot off for myself. All my friends wanted, so I sold it to them. So that's basically how it got started. we sell anything from a firecracker on up to we do sell displays. Sort of like what they did for the Statue of Liberty. We were one of the companies that were involved in that in the anniversary of the Statue of Liberty.
When Ted does get time to race, he makes the most of it. Last season was Gourd's best since coming to alcohol in 1989, capping the season off with a national event win at the Winston Finals.
The racing, to me, it's where I'm in my own little world. When I'm in the car driving, there's no other worries or no other bothers. It's just me and a piece of equipment, and I have to do my absolute best.
Over the course of his 30-year career in drag racing, Ted has raced in several eliminators and owned the Winston Championship Supergas car of Mike Berter in 1985. Today, when he's not racing himself, Gourd spends a lot of his time at the track helping his daughter Brandy with her junior dragster.
I'm very, very proud of my daughter being in it, and I'm very proud of NHRA for taking the step to go forth in the venture of the junior dragster program.
Brandy won this race at Renegade Raceway, and Ted hopes to notch his first win of the season soon after the last flicker of fireworks goes out this weekend.
After polishing, the center is installed in the rim shell to torque specs. Then each wheel goes from this station over to here, where it's checked for runout to make sure it's absolutely round. They use dial indicators and operate to very close tolerances. And there's one more step right over here. A final quality control check and a final polish to get the fingerprints off. Well, our Pro Stock wheel is done. Our Pro Stock report is not. For the final time, here's Dave.
The racer with the best claim to a home track advantage at the Western Auto Nationals was Missourian Lewis Warden. But more important to the team than their 9th qualifying position was that they had solved a problem with how their car reacts.
We got to checking on some things, and it ended up being in our clutch linkage was a little bit off. And since we've adjusted that to where it needs to be, to where it suits me better, then I'm doing pretty good there.
Quick reaction times are a Warden specialty. Last year at the U.S. Nationals, Lewis reached the Final Four due in part to his razor-sharp reflexes.
It's close competition out here, and you got to be good at the tree. You got to be good at the starting line, because when you run against the big guns out here, like you say, you need every little advantage you can get.
In round 1 against Jerry Ekman's Pennzoil Bodiac, Lewis seized the advantage with a superior lead and then hung on to score yet another trademark hole shot victory. But one round later, against the dominant driver of 1993, Warren Johnson, Lewis shaved the lights a little too close and fouled by 0.003 of a second. Warren's GM Performance Parts Olds eventually reached the finals for the 6th time this season, where he faced Larry Morgan. And despite spotting the Castrol Super Clean Cutlass's sizable advantage at the start, a combination of Morgan problems and Johnson horsepower produced yet another win for the reigning Winston champion.
We're just going to have to keep working to try and maintain this lead till the end. And the only time you need a lead is after the last race.
And this lead continues to mount here at Topeka. Warren Johnson vaulted even further ahead of now Scott Jeffrey on in second, followed by Kurt Johnson, Larry Morgan, and Bob Glidden.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show, but we will be back. We'll take you to the Race Rock Motor City Diner. You will not believe this Detroit area eatery. We'll have divisional action from Ohio, the first Junior Dragster Nationals, and a whole lot more. For all of us here at NHRA Today, I'm Steve Evans. See you then on TNN.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.